Thank you. I'm joined now by two of the Tennessee three. Current State Representative Gloria Johnson, and now, perhaps just temporarily, former State Representative Justin Jones. And Gloria Johnson, I'm going to start with you. I know you're a bit mobile right now, and I get that. So let me ask this question this way. Thinking back, was this an inevitable clash that was coming inside this House of Representatives?
Yes, I believe that it was. The fact that our voices are very often silenced on the floor. Our mics are cut. We are not called on. We had no opportunity, and were even gavelled down when we tried to acknowledge the protesters who were there, the moms and the toddlers and the teenagers who were there begging us to do something, and to take real action. And I talked to them, and I listened to them that morning crying about the fear they had while dropping their kids off at school. So we felt compelled in our hearts, all of us, to speak.
Is there something about the rules in the Tennessee House that make it almost easier to get stepped on the way you and the Tennessee three have been stepped on here?
Well, it's the supermajority, the fact that they really don't even have to allow us to talk, and they are able to pass any rules. And so this year they passed a rule that we only have 5 minutes that we can debate. And then of that 5 minutes, if I ask a question that takes 30 seconds, they might read the bill or take up the rest of the 4.5 minutes just by reading the bill or talking nonsense. And so we are being silenced so often on incredibly important legislation and incredibly important discussions like gun sense. It's just horrifying that we are there. We represent 70,000 people each in our districts, and we are there to lift their voices, and we're not given the opportunity.
Justin Jones, members of the Tennessee Black Caucus say that since you took office, that they have been fielding complaints about you being mistreated. You tell me, how have you felt serving from day one, and have you been essentially made to feel unwelcome?
Yes, I think the Tennessee legislature is a very toxic work environment for anyone who does not fit the image that they want to portray. You know, being a young black lawmaker, being 27 years old, and someone who is outspoken for my district, that's the reason why I was elected. From day one, you know, I was told, I think someone said it yesterday during our fake trial, they said, you didn't become one of us. And I take pride in that, is that what we are seeing is a body that is so drunk with power that not only were they silencing us, but they're silencing the 78,000 people who we represent. They're silencing those young people who can't even vote yet, many of them, but who are saying, we want to live. We want to be free from this terror of mass shootings. Let's ban assault weapons. And what do the Republican supermajority do? They assault democracy. And so what we're dealing with is a body that traffics in the rhetoric of racism, and that traffics in these anti-democracy attacks that harm us all.
Let me ask a more basic question about, so the shooting happens. You're a state representative here, Justin, and you're trying to have a conversation about an assault weapon ban. And you probably knew that the numbers were the numbers. But explain to me how they stifled the debate, where you couldn't even sort of, all right, can we at least have a debate to, you talk about the merits and I'll talk about the merits?
I mean, we are not a deliberative body. We are not a democratic body. And so even in something as basic as welcoming and honoring portion of our agenda, where we want to welcome those who are in the gallery, these young people, who were the thousands who showed up to protest, that's what I wanted to do, that was cut off. Our microphones were cut off. You know, when I went outside to stand in solidarity with the protesters, I came back inside, and my machine to press my vote as a lawmaker was cut off by the speaker who made an announcement that we could not do that anymore. Though I never heard that before.
Was that a rule? Did you know about this rule before then?
No, this has never been enforced. Members go to the snack room, they go to the bathroom, they come in and out, and I've never seen a voting machine turned off. And so, I mean, they do everything in their power to silence debate because because they don't want to take accountability. And so, you know, what we saw in committee, we were gavelled down, and it's about so many issues. But this is the most grotesque because, you know, I represented a part of Nashville, and our community's grieving, our community's mourning. There's trauma here from this mass shooting that 6 precious lives were taken. And we're not even allowed to express the outrage, the hurt, the grievances of our community and the call for action. But instead, we're just offered moments of silence. That's all that they allowed us to do and pray.
I mean, Justin, I'm sitting here, you know, a lot of people would say, well, if you really want to do something about a problem, run for office. Well, that's what you've done. You ran for office. You won office. And what you're saying to me is you're not allowed to express your opinion or your district's opinion in office, in the body you were elected to be in.
Exactly. I mean, that is how extreme anti-democracy forces have become, particularly here in a state like Tennessee, where they feel like because of gerrymandered maps and voter suppression that they're in power, but they don't represent the interests of the majority of Tennesseans. And so what do? Is they try and limit discussion, they try and limit what we can advocate for because they're afraid that it will hold up a mirror to their false power. And so, I mean, I ran for office as someone who spent 10 years doing community organizing. I was one of the youngest lawmakers, the youngest black lawmaker, trying to represent my generation. And they told me that, you know, basically that I'm uppity, that, you know, that you need to humble yourself. I said, I'm not coming here as an intern, I'm coming here as a legislator, a colleague, an equal.
Boy, that's a lot of African Americans of another generation were described that way in the 1960s, Justin, is that just speaking out, oh, you're uppity, or you're this, or you're that. Let me ask you this. You were, and as you said, you were an activist. You were well known to folks in that Nashville during the Do you think your activism is why you were specifically targeted for expulsion? The fact that you were a known activist before you even got into office?
Definitely. I mean, that is what got me into office, was that the community knew I was a fighter, that I would speak up. But that is what's threatening to our majority. They are used to people who will bow down to them. There's only 3 of us who went in that well that day. Myself, Representative Johnson, and Representative Pearson. We're the only ones who went to that well because we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. Others could join, but we stood up because this has gone on for far too long. And we could not be silent anymore. And so the body is afraid of voices of dissent. They're afraid of voices of opposition. They're used to just having their way. They call themselves the majority and us the minority, but we're not that. We are the check on power. We are the dissenting voice, the voice of moral dissent, and we are upholding our oath to the state constitution to challenge any decision or law that is injurious to the people. That's what we were doing that day. Well,
and remember, the founders were always about trying to protect minority rights in a deliberative body, and this is a case where the Tennessee House is not doing that. Gloria, you were very clear that you believe race was the only reason why you're still currently a member of the State House. Have you heard from any of these Republican members that, I'm just curious, either behind the scenes, that have said, man, well, maybe we went too far, gosh, how did we get to here? Is there any regret that anybody's expressing?
Not from any elected members. I've heard it from Republicans back home, you know, but I sort of heard, you know, oh, well, they didn't show enough contrition or something like that. But I didn't either, but I'm a white woman.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the younger generation, they're so passionate about what they're doing, and they're so smart and just prepared for this moment. And I think that's frightening to some of the older folks, and certainly to the conservative folks. And I just say we should embrace it, because these 2 young men's voices are so powerful and so important to the Tennessee legislature. We've got to do everything we can to get them back.
Is there anything you can be doing about gerrymandering, Gloria? I mean, it's a massive problem that I don't know if an individual state can do anything about it unless they choose to prioritize competition.
Well, actually, we're about to have a lawsuit about our maps, and we're pretty sure we're going to win it.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that coming up. Yeah. I mean, they did draw me out of our district, out of my district, just my block. They drew out of my precinct. So hopefully we're going to get some comeuppance here pretty soon.
And Justin, it appears, and again, people outside of Tennessee may not realize that you can get reappointed back to the seat before the special election. A couple of things. Will you accept the appointment? And if you do you expect to be seated? And do you plan to file a lawsuit anyway? Because I do think there's some questions about the constitutionality of all this.
Yes, I definitely, would be honored to continue to fight for my district, because what's happening now is that there are 78,000 people in one of the most diverse districts in Tennessee that don't have a voice on Capitol Hill in District 52 because of the extreme retaliation of this Republican supermajority. And so, I look forward to, look if the council would reappoint me, but no matter what, I know that there's a special election, and so we'll continue to organize, continue to speak up, and whether I'm inside or outside the chamber, I will always stand with the people. I think that, the next steps are really about getting seated, are really in the hands of the speaker, who has already shown that he is not a fan of democracy. And so we'll see if, if I am reappointed, if I, run in the special election, if the speaker will appoint me. But there's a case, a Supreme Court case, where Julian Bond, they refused to seat him, a young man when he in the civil rights movement, and he took it all the way to the Supreme Court and won.
No, you have. It's an important history lesson. It's a reminder. History doesn't always repeat, but it sure rhymes. Gloria Johnson, Justice Justin Jones, thank you both for coming on and sharing your perspective with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.